Unit 7. Norms and Regulations. What standards and or regulations do you know? Take a few moments to think about it. So examples of standards are the ISO 9001, la ISO 9001, per exemple, seria un estàndard. Una regulation seria alguna cosa que s'ha de complir per llei, per tant tota la legislació aplicable a la fabricació de fàrmacs o de productes cosmètics seria una regulation. Glossary.
Quality.
Qualitat, qualitat.
Assurance.
Assegurament, aseguramiento.
Suitable.
Adequat, apte, adecuado o apto.
Guidelines.
Guía.
Management.
Gestió, gestión.
Help desk.
Atenció al cliente, atención al cliente.
Endpoint.
Punt final, punto final.
Good practice.
Bones pràctiques, buenas prácticas.
Traceability.
Trazabilitat, trazabilidad.
Product recall.
Retirada de producte, retirada de producto. Una retirada de producte és l'última cosa que vol una empresa. Té lloc quan el producte és defectuós i cal retirar-lo del mercat perquè té algun tipus de problema que afecta o que pot afectar fins i tot a la salut o a la vida de les persones que el fan servir.
Holistic.
Holístic, holístico, en su totalidad.
Approach.
Enfoque. Una forma de resoldre un problema o d'encarar un problema, millor dit.
Procedure.
Procedimiento.
Step.
Paso. The different steps in a process, for example. Les diferents passes d'un procés.
Manufacturing.
Fabricación.
Memo.
Memoràndum. Algun tipus de missatge o correu que transmet informació.
Checklist.
Llista de comprovació. Lista de comprovación.
Timetable.
Horario.
Audit.
Auditoria.
Registrar.
Auditor.
Goal.
Meta o objectiu. Meta u objetivo. Norma.
Staff.
Annex SL.
Annex SL. Anexo SL. Avui dia anomenat Annex L, és una part de la normativa ISO en la qual s'especifica com s'han de redactar les normes ISO relatives a sistemes de gestió. Responsabilitat legal. Partes, en el sentit de les parts d'un acord, per exemple.
GLP. Good laboratory practices.
Bones pràctiques de laboratori. Buenas prácticas de laboratorio.
GMP. Good manufacturing practices.
Bones pràctiques de fabricació. Buenas prácticas de fabricación. Well, first exercise of this unit on page 83, you will find the whole transcript of a part of a caustic soda podcast dedicated to something quite strange that happened at Louis Pasteur laboratory when they were trying to find the vaccine for rabies. So listen to the following conversation while you follow the transcript.
Pasteur, who lost 3 of his 5 children to typhoid fever, was ruthlessly pragmatic in his research. The possibility of getting bitten during his work on the rabies vaccine was very real, and laboratory protocol called for anyone accidentally infected to be killed on the spot.
What?
A revolver was kept on site, and employees were ordered to be shot in the head if they were bitten.
What? Obviously, he hadn't figured out that 85% of people who get bitten don't contract it either.
Maybe he didn't really mean it. He was just like, listen, everybody be really careful.
This is his technique to make sure that
Yeah,
everybody
maybe.
was
I don't know if
ultra careful.
anybody was actually shot in the head.
Yeah.
That was not.
But that was the standing order.
Yeah.
This is very 28 days later.
I think if that was the standing order, I would just be so very, very careful. Like,
Right.
you know, like, okay, I'm careful enough because I'm
Also,
around
I
rabid
quit.
dogs.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine that moment? Like somebody does get bit, and then he's like, just that. And they all look at the revolver, like on the table 5 feet away. It's
Yeah.
like, can I get there before him?
I don't want my science ending up with like a Reservoir Dog standoff. That's not
Ooh.
proper science for me.
Well, so now you will have to come up with a sentence that includes each of these words or expressions that appeared during the caustic soda podcast extract, okay? So pause the video and come back in a few minutes. Well, so examples of the use of these words and expressions can be, for example, he pursued his prey ruthlessly, va perseguir la seva presa implacablement. Laboratory protocol called for everybody to wear safety goggles. El protocol de laboratori obligava que tothom portés ulleres de seguretat. Alan Turing figured out how to break the Enigma code. Alan Turing va descobrir com desxifrar el codi de les màquines Enigma a la Segona Guerra Mundial. Yes, the teacher said he will kill you, but he didn't really mean it. Sí, el profe va dir que te mataria, però en realitat no volia dir això. No ho deia de debò. To behave correctly is the standing order in this laboratory. Un comportament correcte és una ordre en vigor en aquest laboratori. Ending up as a dishwasher was not my idea of getting a better job. Acabar de rentar plats no era la meva idea d'aconseguir una feina millor. The thief was caught on the spot. Van enxampar el lladre allà mateix. Si voleu una expressió col·loquial, per això seria red-handed, amb les mans vermelles, que vol dir, es pot traduir com allò, con las manos en la masa. El red-handed ve de aquella mena d'acudit que feien quan eren petits, de qui s'han tirado pedo el que tenga las manos rojas. Doncs això, d'aquí ve el red-handed. And finally, proper. Hitting it with a hammer is not the proper way to repair a computer. Donar-li cops amb un martell no és la forma més adient d'arreglar un ordinador. So, on page 85, you're going to find this text about quality assurance. You have to read it, and then you will have to answer a few questions. So, you can pause the video now. Okay, here we go. Okay, So let's see, according to the text, which answer is not correct? First one, why is product sampling carried out? This is the wrong answer to introduce product quality, because product sampling is carried out to check that the quality of the product is good enough, to make sure that standard operating procedures SOPs are followed, and to meet high industry standards. SOP, Standard Operating Procedures, es traduiria com PNTs, procediments normalitzats de treball. Which aspect of drug manufacturing enables traceability? This is the wrong answer. Quality assurance, quality control and documentation enable traceability. L'assegurament de la qualitat, el control de qualitat i la documentació fan possible la traçabilitat. L'enfoc holístic no assegura la traçabilitat. Why do operational methods and procedures have to be validated? To isolate products of high quality is the wrong answer. The other answers are correct. Moving on, now you will have to complete these sentences with the correct word or expression in bold from the text in exercise 1. So go back to your dossier, find which words or expressions were in bold type, and come back here and fill in the gaps. Bold type, vol dir en negreta. Okay, let's see. The documentation required for all research processes and development steps ensures the traceability of a drug. A holistic approach considers laboratory and manufacturing processes and environments together and not individually. Quality assurance involves all manufacturing processes and environments together and not individually. Quality control involves interim and product sampling procedures, which are carried out to check product quality. At the end of every stage of a product's manufacturing process, endpoint testing is done to maintain quality standards. Even a product that has been marketed for years might have to be taken off the market in a product recall if a serious adverse reaction occur. Si encara no coneixeu el cas de la talidomida, busqueu-lo per internet. Va ser potser el cas més tràgic de product recall de la història de la indústria farmacèutica. G. Manufacturing processes and procedures must go through periodic validation to guarantee that they are still of an acceptable standard. And finally, H. Contaminated products are no longer pure and acceptable for sale or public use, and therefore must be returned to the manufacturer or destroyed. Page 86. You will have to read this memo, and then you will have to answer the questions that you will find on page 87. So let's pause. And here we go again. What kind of internal audit has been scheduled? An audit of the laboratory safety systems and procedures. What is the objective of this audit? To identify areas requiring corrective or preventive action. How often does this type of audit have to be done? Annually. Once every year. 4. When will the audit take place? In 2 weeks from tomorrow. And number 5. What documentation is necessary for the audit? The audit checklists. Page 88. Norms and regulations. Key differences. What is the difference between a standard and a regulation? you have to write a short essay about it. So by now you will have found that a norm is, as you can see here in red, an established norm or requirement in regard to technical systems. That is a standard that is used in the industry, but that is not compulsory to follow. It is highly advisable. But if you don't comply with a standard, you will not go to jail. However, a regulation is a legal norm. That is something that you have to follow by law. If you don't comply with a regulation, you can find yourself in big trouble. Bàsicament, la norma és algun tipus de normativa que se segueix a la indústria i que, tot i que no és de 100% obligat compliment, és extremadament aconsellable, especialment si es vol ser competitiu, com per exemple la ISO. En canvi, una regulation, una normativa legal, aquesta sí que és d'obligat compliment i si no la compliu, doncs podeu incórrer en sancions administratives o fins i tot penals. ISO 9001, first contact. You have only to watch the next video and try to find the missing words. So, let's go!
The ISO 9000 family of standards were developed by Technical Committee 176, whose job it is to write management system standards about quality. So when people say, I'm ISO 9000 registered, they're really not. They are registered to one of now what will be 4 documents within the ISO 9000 family. So when we say ISO 9000 family, we're talking about quality management standards, okay? ISO 9001 is the standard that everyone is registered to. And by the way, they hardly say registered, they always say certified. You do get a certificate, but the certificate says that you are part of a registry of companies who got a 9001 certificate, okay? Now that document, 9001, is an actual standard that is something that can be audited by someone who would come in from afar and look over your system, and they have in their hand, they have the ISO 9001 standard, and they say, have you done this? And you have to show them that you did. You can also have your own documentation that supports everything in 9001, and you work it out with the auditor that in fact you are compliant. Well, actually compliant and effective, that it's improving your operations, all right? So ISO 9001 is really a management system whose output is quality. There's a requirement within ISO. The International Organization of Standardization wrote a group of documents that they call the ISO documents. ISO is the Greek word for equal. It's amazing. People think that ISO means International Standards Organization, and it's not true. These standards were written so that everybody can trade back and forth with each other on equal footing. If you're doing it this way, and I'm doing it the same way, according to 9001, the standard, then we should be able to get along, even if we speak different languages and drive on different sides of the road. So that's the start, right? Within the guidelines, and actually they call them the directives, of the International Organization of Standardization, the IOS, there's a requirement that every 5 years these documents be revised. or scrapped, right? Well, actually, revised, continued, or scrapped. But the requirement to revise is based on the fact that you can rapidly, in this day and age, become obsolete. So that's why we revise them every 5 years. Some revisions are significant, some are not. Some are almost rubber stamp, just little minor changes. That happened the last time we revised it in 2008. Now this is a wholesale change. A whole bunch of new things have happened this time. The major big changes, I think, come down, and if you ask somebody else, they'll give you two more things, but I think we both agree on these. One is that we're introducing the concept of risk-based thinking. Risk-based thinking. Now, it's not risk management, it's risk-based thinking, where an organization, when it's trying to figure out, well, where it's going and what kind of goals are attainable and how to get there, what its objectives are, it can use a risk-based approach so that it's less hunch, less guesswork, and a lot of, well, let's put it in layman's term, weighing the pros and cons, right? There's opportunity in risk and there is danger in risk. How much of one or the other are we willing to bring into the organization, right? Let alone from one department to another. The sales force takes in high risk, but manufacturing floor, you want no risk. The help desk, you want very little risk there. You want to be able to answer the question and be done with it. The second thing is, for many, many years, and these are for the organizations who have been in existence for some time, not the ones who've never been registered. It's been very difficult for some organizations to have the quality system first be appreciated for what it really is trying to accomplish, and second, to be actually married to, wedded, overlay the actual business itself. So this is the first time that the quality system is directly, and we're saying it straight out, is the business system. There is no bolt-on over the corner here. Well, here's our quality system over here. Take a look, right? Instead, quality and business are united. So the business objectives are the same as the quality objectives. And in a large numbers of organizations, the business objectives are here and the quality objectives are here. And these two support each other, but there's this gulf between the two. And this is really significant that we're actually saying these two must be the same. I think the one that's going to have the biggest impact is that everyone's used to the old structure. Can you imagine if you if you heard that there are no longer 10 commandments, there are now 9? That's what we did. There were 8 management principles, now there are 7. There were sections 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in the old standard. Now there's 4 through 10. So there's a lot of change in terms of look and feel that was never there before. There are new titles to sections that weren't there before. So for those who have been in the game for a while, they're going to see a brand new look and feel, if you will. So that's a third component. There are, I think, some elements within the standard that everyone was were confused about in the past. One of them was preventive action. Well, it's not there anymore. That was replaced with risk-based thinking. So preventive action is gone, and that's going to be something that will take a little getting used to in a lot of organizations. So those are a few of those things. Much like in the past, there'll be 3 years to transition from one to the other. So I make clear in the article to take your time, do it right, but don't lollygag. The biggest problem, and here's history. We don't want to see it repeat itself. In the 2000 revision, which was one of the major significant revisions, a lot of people waited till 2003, and the number of people who wanted to upgrade their registration at the end of 2003 was just crazy, and the registrars couldn't get to everybody. So work with your registrar and get in front of the rush. The first piece of advice is don't do anything right away, because we're still in the what they call the draft international standard phase. When you're in the draft phase, there are still considerable changes that could come into effect. So wait until the middle of next year or so, when we're at what they call the final draft stage. Then little will be changed. So wait until next year, really. Just calm down. And then from that point on, you'll be able to get copies of the standard as of September or so. And then just slowly, as I said, start working your way into this. And especially start dealing with top management early on, so that they can see the difference between the old and the new, and that this should be a welcome new level of involvement on the part of both the quality manager or director or practitioner and the top manager, be he a vice president, president, whatever, to see that when the two are actually combined, that there really are, that no one's working at cross purposes. You know, the last thing you want to see in business is duplicative effort. You don't want to see people duplicating, right, what other people are doing. And I think a lot of duplicative effort could be reduced in terms of management if an organization saw the advantages that are in 2015, the ISO 9001 2015. So work with your management group to start off with, to start really digesting where this has gone and its advantages. Again, look to find the payoff, not the price. You know, it's not that we don't see that some organizations will be challenged. I'm not trying to paint a perfect picture, but the challenge is the whole point. That's how you get to the next level.
The audit is upon us. Tenim l'auditoria a sobre. Listen to a laboratory staff meeting in which preparations for an internal audit of laboratory safety procedures are discussed. First, fill in the blanks of these conversations transcript.
Sorry about the short notice. I strongly suggest we talk about who needs to do what to prepare for the laboratory safety procedures internal audit in 2 weeks. As this is a regular part of good laboratory practice, I don't expect any problems, but do any of you have any questions?
Well, I've never been involved in an audit before. Do I need any special training for it?
Not really. You already know the correct laboratory procedures. My suggestion is that we all review these procedures again with the laboratory technicians, but each of you also has to be prepared to answer the auditor's questions, just in case. First of all, though, make sure all our laboratory staff are here on audit day and are able to answer questions.
One of my lab technicians will be in Vienna at a conference during the audit. If that's a problem, we can cancel the trip.
That's not necessary, but I recommend that at least 2 lab technicians are present during the audit, just to be on the safe side.
What kinds of questions do you think the auditors will ask?
They will probably just observe the lab technicians working and possibly ask you or the lab technicians questions from the company's internal audit checklist. Did you get a copy with my memo?
Yes, I did. What if they ask me a question that I can't answer? Should I ask them to talk to you in that case? What if you're not in on that day?
If there's a question you can't answer, I suggest that you send someone to get me. Don't worry. I plan to be here on all the audit days. If the auditors observe any non-compliance, they'll write it down on their checklist and we'll be informed so that we can take corrective or preventative action. So there's no reason to panic.
One of my lab technicians is out of the country on holiday until the day of the audit. How can I prepare her in time?
Well, the only solution is to reassign her to Charlie's lab on Thursday and Friday, since it's being audited last. You'll have time to bring her up to date by then. The important point is to review all the procedures given in SOP 372008B Rev 2. Read through it again and let me know if you have any questions. Do you all have a copy?
We've just moved offices again and all our SOPs are still in boxes. Do you have a copy I could look at in the meantime?
Here you are. You can use my extra copy until you've unpacked. Any last questions? If not, I have just a couple of final points. If I may make a suggestion, we should tell the lab staff to double-check that all the labs are spotlessly clean and that all lab devices and equipment are where they should be, at every single workstation. I suggest that they also check the equipment lists to make sure each workstation has all the correct equipment. May I just suggest that the junior lab technicians take care of these two items?
Okay, so let's see. The missing words were audit, procedures, laboratory, technicians, auditors, checklist, answer, corrective, review, and workstation. Next, you will have to mark the following statements about the previous conversation as true or false. Let's see. Number 1, this is a planned audit. True. Number 2, the auditors will be giving information to the lab technicians during the audit. False. Number 3, one of the lab technicians will be in London during the audit. False. Number 4, the laboratory staff will only be cleaning the laboratories to prepare for the audit. False. And number 5, the junior lab technicians will be cleaning the laboratories and checking the workstation equipment lists. Yes, that one is true. ISO 14001 explained. Now we're going to watch a video about ISO 14001, the ISO about environment, and you will have to make a sentence using the following expressions from the video. Think outside the box, the bigger picture, and environmental footprint.
Welcome back to Best Practice TV. My name's Kobe Simmet, I'm the CEO here, and what I've got to talk to you about today is making ISO 14001 environmental management systems easy to implement in your business. And I think we've had a question come through just in the last week around, my customers asking me to get ISO 14001 environmental accreditation, and they're saying, well, why does it apply to us? We're just an electrical contractor. And I think what's really important to understand in this aspect is that you're the expert in electrical contractor, or you're the expert supplier that's supplying something unique and valuable to your customer. Your customer's not going to know everything about the products and services that you supply, and they're relying on you and asking for you for your contribution from an environmental perspective. So think outside the box. You think, okay, well, when I supply this thing to my client, how could I potentially help them with a more sustainable decision, a more sustainable approach to the products and services that we're going to use in the project? One thing I'd like you to be thinking about is the bigger picture. So if a customer's asked you to go and get ISO 14001 Environmental Management System certification or accreditation, what they're really asking you to do is have a contribution to their environmental impacts. It's not just about you. Yes, they might be concerned about how you operate your business and that you recycle your rubbish, and that you separate all your waste, and that you buy environmentally friendly products and services, and that you minimize your carbon footprint. But from a big picture perspective, because you're their supplier, here, what they're looking for in some cases is advice. And because you're the specialist in your particular industry, you're the specialist in what you do, you're going to have a bit of a much better understanding of what you're thinking about and what you're doing with regards to environmental management, and how you can also influence their environmental footprint, their carbon footprint, minimise their environmental impacts. A question came through last week here to Best Practice with an electrical contractor where they were trying to understand, well, what was the big thing that they were trying to achieve? And I think what we unpacked as part of the discussion and the advice that we gave them was understanding the environmental impact that they can have on the client long term. And that was about the client having a sustainable asset, making recommendations in their project so that the client could minimise environmental impact. And so that's recommending, products and services, electrical transformers, electrical components that minimise impact on the environment. And yes, the customer might pay a little bit more money for them short term, but their asset's going to be cheaper to run in the long term and have a smaller environmental footprint. So have a think about your impact on your customer when you're considering your environmental impacts. Have a think about how you can help your customer to be more environmentally friendly in the future and add some of that value. And that's the real intent of ISO 14001. Your global impact, obviously, as you have relationships with your suppliers and your customers. So it's not just about operating your business, it's about the bigger picture impacts that you can have. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and turn on the notifications. We're dropping videos on Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday. We'll see you soon.
You must be creative. You have to think outside the box. Has de ser creativa, has de pensar allò outside the box, fora de la caixa, has de tenir un pensament original. The bigger picture. I'm looking too much at the details. I don't see the bigger picture. La perspectiva general. Estic fixant-me massa en els detalls. No veig allò, el conjunt, la visió de conjunt. No tinc visió de conjunt o perspectiva general. Environmental footprint. The environmental footprint of coal is huge. La empremta mediambiental del carbó és enorme. Que li diguin als alemanys que no paren de cremar carbó a les seves centrals tèrmiques. Fixeu-vos en un mapa de contaminació atmosfèrica d'Europa i veureu d'on surt la major part de la contaminació. Management from OSHAs to ISO. Now you have to watch the video about OSHA's 18001 and try to find the missing words.
OSAS 18001 specifies the requirements for a health and safety management system, and what it does is it enables organisations to implement a policy and objectives which takes account of their legal and regulatory requirements and information about health and safety risks. A safe and healthy workplace doesn't come about by accident, and what OSAS 18001 does is it provides organisations with a robust system to help them to identify hazards, estimate risks, and put in place measures to mitigate the consequences. OSAS 18001 is suitable for organisations of all sizes that want to set up formal procedures for managing health and safety risks, and some of the benefits are improved health and safety performance and a way of keeping your people safe through the regular assessment process, which will help you continually monitor and improve your health and safety performance. Fewer accidents and staff absenteeism, reduced liability through a reduction in the cost of fines and civil actions, and a tender and competitive advantage. Our customers have told us that having a robust health and safety management system in place has allowed them to meet tender pre-qualification requirements, opening up new markets and allowing them to win new business.
The main changes will be the use of a new high-level structure, Annex SL, which will bring greater consistency to new management system standards. Key changes are likely to include more emphasis on the concept of risk management, a requirement to involve and secure more engagement from senior management, which needs to be implemented into the organisation's business strategy, Increased strategic consideration of your organisational context. This basically relates to understanding the internal and external issues and the needs and expectations of interested parties. Reinforcement of the needs to demonstrate and understand compliance status at all times, and the use of performance indicators to track improvement throughout the system.
If you are currently certified, you will need to monitor the changes, talk to your client manager or assessor, consider the integration opportunity that Annex SL presents with existing management systems. PAS 99 provides an ideal framework to help organisations integrate their systems. Start to make senior management aware that changes are coming and a transition plan will need to be developed and resources required. If you are currently developing your system, continue working towards certification under OSAS 18001. The transition period is likely to be 2 or 3 years, giving you time to move your business to the new standard.
BSI will be helping you to navigate your way through the changes by providing transition guidance documents for you. To ensure your management system remains compliant and robust, BSI will be keeping in touch with you regularly through email, through white papers, and through webinars. You can register for priority updates by visiting the 18001 revision page at our website. Our customer care team, as well as client managers and sales teams, will be happy to talk through the timings for assessment visits and durations.
OSAS 18001 is still relevant to organisations. Health and safety risk is an important issue that organisations need to manage, and they can't afford to put this on the back burner until the publication of the new international standard. Once the standard publishes, organisations will have a period of time to make the transition, and BSI will support our customers through that process.
The missing words were policy, política, health, salud, system, procedures, assessment, liability, management, markets, risk, business, parties, compliance. Annex SL, resources, and finally, period. Why we fight. Watch the video about Frances Oldham Kelsey. You are going to find the complete transcript on your dossier, and after watching the video,
in the fall of 1960, Frances Oldham Kelsey was one of the Food and Drug Administration's newest recruits. Before the year was out, she would begin a fight that would save thousands of lives, though no one knew it at the time. Although she was new to the FDA, Kelsey was no novice as a scientist. After graduating from high school at age 15, she enrolled at McGill University in Montreal and earned both undergraduate and master's degrees in pharmacology. From there, she applied for a research post at the University of Chicago's Pharmacology Department. Her acceptance letter was addressed to Mr. Oldham. Kelsey later joked that had her name been Elizabeth or Mary Jane, her career might have ended there. Fortunately, it didn't. She earned her doctorate in pharmacology and accepted Chicago's invitation to stay as faculty, where she undertook pioneering research on drugs and fetal safety. In 1950, she earned an MD, her fourth and final degree. By the time she joined the FDA, Frances Kelsey was one of the most educated, experienced scientists around. Yet, as the newest member of the team, Kelsey was assigned what everyone thought would be an easy review, an application from the U.S. drug company Merrill to sell a drug called thalidomide. Thalidomide was a sedative developed in Germany that was already being widely used in dozens of countries to treat insomnia and workplace stress. Thalidomide's anti-nausea properties also made it a popular remedy for pregnant women with morning sickness. Reviewing Merrill's application, Kelsey found its data on thalidomide's absorption and toxicity inadequate. Today, the FDA classifies drugs based on their safety for a fetus. But in 1960, many experts believed that the placental barrier shielded a fetus from harm. Kelsey's earlier animal-based research demonstrated the opposite. Drugs could pass from mother to fetus through the placenta. Like other drug companies at this time, Merrill had not tested its drug on pregnant animals. Kelsey later said Merrill's evidence for thalidomide's safety seemed more like testimonials than the results of well-designed studies. Kelsey rejected Merrill's application and asked them to submit a second, backed by better evidence. Her FDA colleagues supported this decision. Merrill had expected a quick affirmative reply so it could launch thalidomide for the holiday season, when sedative sales soared. Instead of supplying Kelsey with the data she requested, they first tried to convince her to approve the drug over a series of calls and visits. When these failed to sway her, Merrill executives complained that stubborn and nitpicking Kelsey was the problem, not thalidomide. The FDA backed Kelsey, forcing Merrill to file another application, and another, and another. As Kelsey reviewed and rejected each new application, news of thalidomide's adverse side effects began to surface. Doctors reported cases of nerve damage in early 1961, and by fall, they'd unmasked a more horrible truth. Thalidomide, widely used by pregnant women, caused severe birth defects. Thousands of babies died in utero, and tens of thousands more were born with extra appendages, shorter limbs, or no limbs at all. In November 1961, thalidomide was pulled from the German market. Nonetheless, Merrill continued trying to get it approved in the U.S. for several months before withdrawing their sixth and final application. While Kelsey wasn't the only scientist to identify the risks of thalidomide, she sounded the alarm that kept it off the multi-billion-dollar American drug market. As public awareness of the thalidomide tragedy grew, the quiet scientist became a media sensation. Headlines in newspapers and magazines heralded her heroism, while a smiling President John F. Kennedy presented her an award on the White House lawn. After the thalidomide scare, Congress passed laws that expanded the FDA's authority and toughened requirements for new drug applications. Kelsey was tapped to head the agency's drug investigation branch. Working at the FDA in different capacities into her 90s, Kelsey was able to witness the changes her actions helped inspire. Her visibility may have dimmed since, but her legacy endures. Privileging facts over opinions, and patience over shortcuts, she made evidence-based medicine the foundation of reforms that continue to protect people today. We are inspired by Frances Kelsey's story, and we hope you are too. But Dr. Kelsey's life-saving work was almost thwarted by the pervasive gender biases of the 1930s. When offered her job at the University of Chicago, she felt pressured to refuse it because, according to Dr. Kelsey, when a woman took a job in those days, she was made to feel as if she was depriving a man of the ability to support his wife and child. Today, women make up almost 40% of the world's paid workforce, but they are still disproportionately unrepresented in STEM fields. Why? These students in our TED Ed Clubs program are asking the same question, and many are using the platform to share their scientific ideas, discoveries, and hopes with the world. Make space for your passion and join the movement to promote student ideas. Visit ed.ted.com/clubs to learn more.
Now you have to translate the following words into Catalan or Spanish, keeping in mind the context in which they are used in the video. Novice es un novato, novata. MD, doctora o doctor en medicina. Una doctora o doctor en química sería un PhD, PhD. MD es Medicine Doctor, doctor en medicina. Application, sol·licitud, drug, medicament, testimonials, testimonis, opinions, supported, recolzat, apoyado, soar, disparar-se, backed, recolzat, també, media, mitjans de comunicació, evidence-based, basat en proves. And now you will have to answer the following questions about the video. First, how old was Frances when she graduated from high school? She was 15 years old. 2. There was a curious confusion related to her application for the University of Chicago's pharmacology department. What happened? The university addressed her as a man, Mr. Oldham, thinking that Frances was a man's name. 3. What was Frances' first assignment when she joined the FDA? To review an application from the Merrill Pharmaceutical Company about a drug called thalidomide. Why did Frances reject the application from Merrill? She found the data on the drug's absorption and toxicity to be inadequate. 5. Did the pharmaceutical company provide new evidence about the safety of thalidomide? No. 6. What happened to the FDA after the thalidomide affair? It was given an extended authority and the requirements for new drugs applications were toughened. Els requeriments per sol·licitud de nous medicaments es van endurir. Pick one ISO, any ISO. Find information about ISO 9001, 14001 and 45001 and answer this. If you were to implement only one of these systems, which one would it be? And why? Discuss it with the rest of your team, or discuss it with your classmate, or make a case for your ISO of choice. And that's all. See you again in Unit 8.